what is happening with these clinics and funds? I'm seeing, clinics that I used to follow and I support in Texas that are closing down. I see that Yellowhammer Fund has decided to pivot or basically stop providing the kinds of assistance that they were providing before. What are you hearing and what are you seeing, and why? I think we know
Yeah,
why.
it's a precarious legal situation right now, right? So as soon as Roe fell, it's not just that, abortion became illegal in states. It also, unleashed all these archaic laws around abortion, including conspiracy charges. And some of these charges, like these laws go back to like before emancipation, before the Civil War. So what we're having to navigate is what is our legal liability as as organizations and as individuals in this new legal landscape. So some funds are waiting to find out like what's the legal advice, like what's the legal guidance from the AG of the state. Some are, leaning towards we're going to keep working until we're told not to. Some are kind of doing it in the middle, going, well, we'll do the safest work we can that we know that is kind of covered under the First Amendment. Like we think that we can get away with. Sharing news articles that share the stuff that we generally would have just said ourselves, like access to plan c.org, pills.org and aidaccess.org, that kind of stuff. And so I just think we're in this moment where everything is just changing very rapidly and everything is chaos. Like Yellowhammer Fund hasn't shifted what they're doing per se. What they're doing is pausing their services. So it's not that they're never going to fund abortions again. It's just how do they do it safely and protect not only clients, but the people who work for Yellowhammer Fund, many of whom are marginalized people. So like I would never, as an executive director, put any of those people in harm's way. But also I feel like I can say this as someone who's transitioning out of that role. I feel like personally, I think that there is less risk than some people are thinking there is. And that we have more legal standing than people think we have. And I think that's being borne out by some of these cases that we're seeing, clinics win and getting injunctions and being able to reopen. We're seeing, you understand what I'm saying? And so I think that we as activists should not give up our work. Like we should not concede a loss before there's a loss. That's just my philosophy. Now I can't make other people ride with me. Okay. I'm not asking them to take on the risk that I'm willing to take on. So like, I can't ask an organization to ride with me with that, but I'm just saying, I think just me as from the way of activism that I was raised up in, I rode with Mississippi veterans of the civil rights movement. So I'm steeped in civil disobedience. If a law is unjust, you should not obey it.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. And I'm not saying that we should all as 501c3s be out here, saying fuck the law. But I do know as individuals, we have more options than what people are necessarily saying.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up. I feel like that so many movements were not as steeped in the 501c3 world, obviously, and they as like during the civil rights movement, it's like the nonprofit industry was a fraction of what it is today, and so there was a little bit more militancy and ability to be more militant, and I have to agree with you, but I'm on the outside, and so I think it's a point of privilege to take the position like people should fight harder and risk all kinds of things because if you're not in it. Yeah.
I mean, like Rocky Gonzalez from La Frontera Fund said something really poignant on a panel we were on recently where she said, we run 501c3s so we can get paid.
Right.
It's not how we move to do all our work.
Yeah. Right. This exactly. It's because you need to be supported in this work, but it shouldn't politically dictate the strategy of how. And let me ask, and this is sort of jumping a little bit, but do you feel like if there was more of a directive of support coming down, even from the highest, offices, even from the White House. If there was a deployment of lawyers, if there was a deployment of funds, if there was, a mobilized effort to, let's say, get plan C, like ramp up production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that small clinics and funds would feel more emboldened to actually skirt these state laws?
I think a couple things could be better supported, right? One, we could support grassroots organizations that are not part of the 501c3 nonprofit industrial complex, right?
Yes.
Like you can support, but let me be clear, white people don't like to give their money to people of color and Black people who are not part of the nonprofit industrial complex because they want to see where all our money goes and they want to be able to say, oh, I know that those Negroes have spent this money on this, that, and the other, and the third, and I can check up on them because honestly, they don't even trust us to do work without white people watching us in our daily work. I mean, I've literally been told doing the work at MRF, what's what we call MRFF, that we needed to put white people on our board to get a grant. So there's that.
Wow.
So like, I mean, just know that it is a struggle to get supported when you're out here and you're not part of that system.
Yeah.
So I think there's a role for 501c3s to kick money to organizations that are loosely organized. And there's also a role for motherfuckers to just give the money. Like, stop. Like if we're out here saying trust women, and we're out here saying like trust people on the ground, then give your damn money and stop acting like everybody's being a scammer. Like I understand that there's scammy shit going on, but everybody out here is not being a scammer. And if you see our work, then you know we're not scamming. If people are out here we're still telling you X, Y, and Z person has been funding abortions for 8 years, or that they know that person has been giving out water in their community, giving out food, giving out, like there's receipts to be had.
Yeah. Yeah.
But are they itemized? I need itemized receipts.
I need to make sure that they never got Uber Eats on this money.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
like, there are literally people who want activists to starve,
Right.
but you not do the work. Like you have to support activists too.
Yeah.
So just throwing that out there. And I know that wasn't quite what we were going at, but the point is we can't do our work to make sure people have access if we're not well funded and like able to do that organizing and able to have that freedom to do that organizing. There's amazing organizing going on in the South.
And
Yes.
what organizations exist outside of the nonprofit industrial complex that people, like
One. No.
that people can give money to,
The thing is there's like not a lot anymore, right?
Yeah,
It's like because we cannot function.
Right.
Right? Like honest to God, if I could have founded our organization and not had us be a 501c3, we wouldn't be a 501c3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Like,
just
and I will say one of the things that benefited people in the civil rights movement is they were under churches.
Yeah.
Can I
Liberal churches, here's your moment.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, and the other thing I was gonna say is, and this is just also because I've obviously came off this doc, but like, the ways that they talk about how the police turn their blind eye to the abortion clinics that were operating because they also relied on them, and I think there is something to be said about the reliance on, because we know people will always get abortions. They can only be prevented from getting safe abortions, right? That there's this bullshit reliance on, folks like yourself, who is like, well, Laurie's always going to be there to fight. And kind of like this, that like all people, whether cops, government officials, politicians, they all know that this work is not actually going to go away. It's just going to make it 10 times more precarious and difficult, and they're okay with that. And yet their communities, their families, they themselves rely on access to abortion. So that's actually what's sick about the 501c3 complex in general, doing all the work that the fucking government can't do,
Right.
or is unwilling to do.
we're stopgaps, right? Like we're literally stopgaps. We're not supposed to be the solution. Bail funds aren't supposed to be a solution, right? Like abortion funds aren't supposed to be a solution.
GoFundMe is not supposed to be a solution.
Right. We're supposed to be a stopgap while we're working to fix the problem. Like I didn't think we'd ever be in this spot. At least I hoped we wouldn't. It's not like we didn't think we would be here, especially after Trump was elected. But when I first entered the movement, I thought maybe access would fall in Mississippi. That's what we were preparing for in 2012, 2013, is that we would lose access in a state, maybe 2 states. And that's so hard to plan for. Like when Texas had access issues back in 2012, 2013, every state around Texas was impacted, right? Mm-hmm. Now, multiply that by 13 states, the chaos that is going on right now. I mean, the good thing that I can point to is I just did an interview for an article for a government magazine about the post office, right? And the reporter called me and said, I just talked to the United States Postal Service, and they said they're not going to do anything to police pills coming in the country. They're not searching anything. They said the responsibility is on the person who ships stuff to adhere to the laws of their state, of the federal government, and that their commitment is to make sure people get their mail.
Right.
So I need to stress that to people, that first class mail cannot be opened without a warrant. They have to get that warrant. They have to take it to the postmaster, right? The postmaster has to then get your mail and open it. They have to know you're getting something to get that warrant. Like, it's very hard to get a warrant for somebody's first class mail. They can't just sit around and open everyone's first class mail. And that's a federal thing. That's not a local thing. They can't just locally decide in Mississippi they're going to start holding up everyone's mail and opening it.
Right. Exactly. And is DeJoy still in office? Is that
he is, but he can't change that. There's nothing he can do to those are federal regulations. Like, that's federal law. So like currently, I can just say for right now.
Right, exactly.
Like, for right now. We ain't moved that far into fascism yet. But we can like, people can feel fairly confident that if they guard their digital security and order pills online, that they should be fairly safe in doing so.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.